Ah, December. There's no other time quite like it, is there? You got Christmas, time at home with the family, last minute shopping, the annual Star Wars movie. Yes, this seems like a time to reflect on the year that we've left behind. But this year, well... yeah, we're not going to reflect on this year. But before it ends, finally, there's something else I'd like to reflect on. Something very dear to me. Who here remembers the movie The Black Hole? Yeah, that's about what I expected. Okay, let me give you a little history lesson. The 1970s and early to mid 1980s tends to be a rather forgotten period of Disney's history. Their animated output during this time period was significantly minimal, and though some of their films like Bedknobs and Broomsticks, Pete's Dragon, Escape to Witch Mountain, and the original Tron have all gone on to gain some sort of small cult followings, the rest of Disney's work from this period tends to be quietly forgotten. After Walt Disney's death in 1966, along with his brother Roy's death in 71, the company was left in the hands of Walt's son-in-law, Ron Miller. In the mid-70s, Miller began to push the studio to make films that appeal to more mature audiences that would usually brush off the Disney brand name. Ultimately, this strategy didn't work too well, and eventually Miller resigned under pressure from Disney in 1984, while his mindset of going in a more mature direction ultimately led to the creation of Touchstone Pictures. But the film that really started it all was The Black Hole. Originally released December 21st, 1979, the film is notable for being Disney's very first PG-rated film, being seen as their answer to the overwhelming Star Wars craze of the time, and that's just about it, really. Although it was a moderate financial success, grossing about $36 million against a $20 million budget, as well as having 2 Oscar nominations for visual effects and cinematography, both critics and audiences were generally mixed towards the film, criticizing its inconsistent tone, clunky script, glaring scientific inaccuracies, corny visuals, etc. Yet despite all its faults, I'm not ashamed to admit that I personally love this film. There are a lot of things that I like about it, and the fact that it's such a little remembered film, even to Disney themselves, really makes it stand out more to me. So, no pun intended, let's dive right into The Black Hole. The film opens with a CG rendering of the titular black hole. This was one of the very first uses of computer graphics in a Hollywood film, so at the time, this was rather impressive. After that, we see a lone spaceship drifting along. This is the USS Palomino. The crew consists of Captain Dan Holland, Robert Forster, Lieutenant Charlie Pizer, Joseph Bottoms, Dr. Kate McRae, Yvette Mayhew, Dr. Alex Durant, Anthony Perkins, Professor Harry Booth, Ernest Borgnine, and Vincent, voiced by Roddy McDowall. Ignore the goofy character design for now, folks, we'll get to that later. The year is 2130, and the crew is headed back to Earth after an unsuccessful mission to...
to discover habitable life in outer space.
Yeah, that. When Vincent stumbles upon a shocking anomaly. Yes, the black hole.
My God. Right out of Dante's Inferno.
Get used to those hellish analogies, folks, because there's a lot more where that came from.
Every time I see one of those things, I expect to spot some guy in red with horns and a pitchfork.
Yeah, black holes are the devil, we get it. But Vincent points out something even more peculiar. A derelict spacecraft floating dangerously close to the black hole. This is the USS Cygnus, a spacecraft whose mission was to... again.
Discover habitable life in outer space.
Whatever that's supposed to mean. The ship disappeared over 20 years ago, but that may be explained by the fact that it was helmed by the famed scientist Dr. Hans Reinhardt, played by Maximilian Schell.
Reinhardt had the knack of making his own ambition seem like a matter of national pride. Why, he talked the Space Appropriations Committee into the costliest fiasco of all time, and refused to admit failure.
That definitely sounds like someone I would trust. Maybe. Curiously, the black hole hasn't moved the Cygnus by even an inch.
It's certainly worth investigating.
My instincts are against it, Alex.
But we'll go in for a closer look.
So despite the prospect of being pulled into a black hole with absolutely no means of escape, the crew goes in to investigate. But I guess they lucked out because as they approach the Cygnus, they suddenly experience a loss of zero gravity.
What happened?
Natural phenomenon. Or something from that ship?
No, 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 those stingers have been done to death already. So the crew goes in for a closer look, but what a shock, they end up drifting towards the black hole. Probably should have trusted your instincts there, Captain. One of the ship's hatches breaks loose, so Vincent goes out to secure it. But apparently the signal is really bad out here, so Kate tries to get through to Vincent through her ESP? Yeah, I don't know either.
I got through to Vincent. He said there are old pilots and there are bold pilots, but there are very few old, bold pilots.
She's tuned in on Vincent, all right?
Yep, good old Vincent, spouting out incredibly vague philosophy at the worst possible times. Vincent's tether snaps, but he escapes the pull of the black hole through... Oh, come on! But they manage to escape, because... yeah. And they re-enter orbit around the Cygnus, which I gotta admit is a pretty darn cool looking ship. Impractical for someone trying to go near a black hole of all things, but still, pretty cool. But suddenly...
Locking warheads into firing position.
Hold it, Dan. They've got to be friendly. They could have blasted us right out of
Okay, that's not what happens. But McCrae thinks she sees something very peculiar aboard the Cygnus.
There are people, Alex. I know it. I feel it.
So they dock on board the Cygnus and step inside for a closer look. But Charlie is forced to stay behind because he's the rookie, I guess.
Don't worry, Mr. Pizer. They also serve who only stand and wait.
Vincent, were you programmed to bug me?
No, sir, to educate you.
I volunteered for this mission. I never thought I'd end up playing straight man to a tin can.